This is Rashonda Thornton, the Dietitian Against Diets podcast show. I am excited to introduce you to my new monthly panel series called Heart and Grit, Conversations with Mindful Leaders. Now, through these conversations, you will be able to connect to the trials and tribulations that they struggle, but also recognizing the success they've had in their lives. Thanks to Midwest Dairy, every month I will be joined by a different dynamic set of leaders who have done all the footwork behind the scenes, but they have done it with a passion and with their heart. This is an opportunity to connect with their stories, learn their struggles, and celebrate their successes. But most of all, find a way to connect to your life and how this can be an inspiration to you. Well, hello and welcome to another panel series that we have here. This one in particular is called Heart and Grit, and it's all about finding those mindful leaders that have done all the work in the back end, but they've also created success not only for themselves, but for others. So for this particular month, we're going to focus on stepping up when it's the most difficult. And I call that the Philanthropist entrepreneur. So I have with me some powerhouses here, as you see on the panel today, and I'm very happy to introduce them to you today. We'll start off with Maxine Clark. She is the founder and recently former CEO of Build a Back Workshop. We have Kristy Jackson. She is the CEO of DK Solutions and the creator of Inspiration. And last but definitely not least, we have Marc Bowers here, founder and executive director of St. Louis Makes. Now, everyone on this panel, they come with many other titles and businesses and areas of leadership that they work in. But what they all have in common is that they're philanthropist entrepreneurs, which means they have built businesses up within themselves, but they also use that business in a way to help others. So I wanted to say, first of all, just welcome everyone. Thank you for being a part of this panel discussion.
Glad to be here.
Thank you.
Yes. So we're just going to jump right into it. So my first question is, anytime you start any business, it comes with an idea. And sometimes it's just, I call it those pivotal moments when you decide this can really be something. So Maxine, I'm going to start off with you because we know Build-A-Bear is a very worldwide, almost international company that's known for their stuffed animals. What was that unique spark that you had when it came to building a business around stuffed animals? Where did it come from?
It's a great question. Thank you for asking it. But when I decided to start my own business, I'd worked for the May department stores, most recently as the president of the Payless Shoe Source. And I decided I wanted to start my own business. I was always an entrepreneur within the corporate structure and known for being creative and doing my own businesses. But one day I decided this is what I'm going to do. And I was just out looking for ideas. And I took my best friend, Katie, and her brother, Jack. She was 10 and he was 7, looking for Beanie Babies, if you can remember that trend.
I remember that, yeah.
And we were in a toy store in St. Louis. And when they didn't have the ones they wanted, Katie just declared, these are so easy, we could make these. Well, she meant go home to my house and do a craft project. But I had this Willy Wonka moment in my head, and the idea exploded. I could see it. I could see this factory, semi-factory in a mall, kids going through very Disney-esque and Willy Wonka. And that's really literally how the idea came about. It was that kind of a day. And within 9 months, we opened our first store in the St. Louis Galleria.
Wow. So just off that one encounter or that moment of okay, we can really do something because you saw there was a need there. And you just took that and just went with it.
It wasn't so much a need as it was a desire. I remembered as a little kid, I loved going on field trips. And, and I loved doing crafts. My mother was very artistic. And so we would always make things out of nothing. And basically, when Katie said that, she meant go home to my house, really get out the sewing machine, get out the material and cut it. And I thought, this is what kids really need, is to be able to use their creativity. And so we came up with a model that would work, that basically, would allow them to have some creativity in the process, mostly in dressing the bears. But it took off and kids really loved it and parents loved it. And the rest, as they say, is history.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of, you remember back when we were young, the Mr. Potato Heads, where you can piece together different parts, or even Barbie dolls. I mean, it's the same concept of just giving us kids opportunities to create their own bear that'll be their own personalized bear. So, wow, that's just really neat. I'm sure many people have no idea that it kind of started with the Beanie Babies, what started that conversation. Wow. It's amazing, again, how businesses sometimes, it can just be one moment and something just kind of turns you a certain direction that, would not have happened on a regular basis. Sometimes when ideas come about, it's not by happen chance, not necessarily on purpose, So it's great to hear that. So I actually, when we think about spaces and creating spaces for people, Kristy, you're known as the network connector. Why has networking and building spaces for people, why has that been a cornerstone to your business? I mean, you do everything from workshops to summits to just having gatherings. That it's about creating opportunities and events to help people, but it creates ways to connect them at the same time. Why is that? It's like your platform, your cornerstone.
Well, that has really evolved. I will say that I evolved into an entrepreneur. I evolved into an advocate. Ever since a little girl, I have this thing with, protecting the underdog and making sure that, people have what they need serving. And actually, I didn't intend to become an entrepreneur, even though I observed my mom as an entrepreneur. 20 years, she owned her own music studio. But we just started off in service, really just helping. And it started with planning events for people. And ultimately, people would always say, how do you have these creative ideas? And how do you know these people? Well, I'm naturally a curious person. And so I ultimately became that resource for people that had questions about, finding, where do I need to show up to get, this connection, or who do I know, who can I connect with to have, this experience. And, for me, one day, a friend of mine, we were doing an event for her, and she's like, how much are you going to charge me? And I'm like, I'm not going to charge you. I just love doing this. And so she's like, no. So that was my first customer. And that's where we had to reposition our mindset that, okay, this is now a business. This is obviously a service that people need. And so as I learned how to become an entrepreneur, I shared the information that I was learning with others that were coming along with me, alongside me, that were also needing to have that same information. And what I found as I, sort of navigated through the startup community, you had to kind of know what questions to ask. You needed to know the right people. You needed to know where to show up. And when we found those spaces, we were ringing the bell and telling our friends and colleagues and people that we knew that this is where you show up and this is where you get the information. So our work really has become coaching and consulting and building bridges and creating spaces, in addition to the current entrepreneurship spaces. We have developed some amazing partnerships with, organizations like Venture Cafe and, just having events all out of the Cortex area in the South St. Louis area that was maybe more accessible to some entrepreneurs that are not aware of that space. Even Arch Grants, we did an event at our space where, we had Arch Grants entrepreneurs come in and talk about their experience. And this was just a whole new way of bringing to awareness this organization to, entrepreneurs that had no idea that it existed. So out of our purpose, that's really where our business evolved.
Yeah. I like that. And I will say, even for myself, like when I first, got into the business, I had to start somewhere. And it was about surrounding yourselves by people that they may not be going the same direction you're going as far as a business, but they're the same mindset as far as their way of thinking. And then one thing about networking, and I say this all the time, I'm sure you all can back this up. Network is not really just passing out cards. Networking is actually developing real relationships and letting that grow over time, where you're building that trust, you're building that partnership, where you're actually finding a way to help each other. So I think, creating those spaces like you've been doing, and you see the same people they follow, they're a part of it. And it just creates a larger community of more trust, And so again, it goes down to who you know, learning from each other. And like everyone has endeavors to do, to be an entrepreneur, you have endeavored to do something that you are scared to do, and being surrounded in spaces where it gives you that ability to say, okay, if they've done this, I can do that. Maybe I should talk to him or her. Oh, there's Maxine over there. Like, we all find a way to kind of circle around each other. So it's good that your first goal was just create a service, and then it just kind of turned into something, Yeah. It's kind of an unintentional approach. But it was purpose. Yeah, it was meant for you. Yeah.
It was purpose.
Yeah. Well, that's really good to hear. So, now, this platform is definitely is a wide variety of leaders on here that have their own businesses. And like Marc, for one, you're more in an industrial component of it. But you're all about product innovation and finding ways to expedite when it comes to businesses as far as scaling. Now, this is your baby when it comes to this industry. Now, I mean, I know St. Louis is a great place. Nothing wrong with St. Louis, but you had your education in different areas of the country. How did St. Louis become your hub where you have decided this is where you're going to set shop to build this particular type of service?
So that's a really good question, and there's a lot in there that kind of ties me to the St. Louis area. Our primary focus is manufacturing, so I have to start by mentioning that it's all tangible produced goods. And if you think about it, St. Louis and the state of Missouri are essentially right in the middle of North America. So if you have to produce it and ship it, it's cost effective. It beats the pricing that some of the challenges that you have in California or New York, and it's easier. You're already halfway to one from the other. So it's from a shipping standpoint, you're more centrally located. You have some advantages. Mm-hmm. So those are reasons. Those are practical reasons. And it's also a part of the country where we over-index on manufacturing. So we have a greater representation of manufacturing here. And as a city, St. Louis has greater representation of small, privately owned and controlled facilities. So there's a market need there, and those aren't larger firms like Boeing is an example of one that's definitely here locally, but they to be perfectly candid, are probably going to be just fine without our help. Whereas a smaller firm, I said that jokingly, whereas a smaller firm, might actually benefit from some of the introductions. So when you want to get a product produced and you're a smaller firm, even if you're 8 figures net revenue, you don't always have all of that in-house. And if we know the right entrepreneurs and we can make the right introductions, it can benefit both parties. So I think that there's a lot in the St. Louis area that was underappreciated, under-leveraged, and under-realized. Let's just say that we saw an opportunity to bring together through St. Louis Makes, which is my organization. And it's a nonprofit. So like I said, it's definitely mission-driven.
Yeah, and you do a lot of things too, Marc. You always have it. You're always talking about some sort of event that's happening. I've been to several of your different ones. So you're also big as far as Kristy in regards to creating that space where we're just bringing people together, and then let the magic kind of happen.
The madness that's killing us right now is that, we're normally out in the field and out at factories. And, obviously there are requirements now that prohibit that. So, we're doing as much as we can digital, but it's not the same walking around showing somebody something on FaceTime as it is being able to actually point to a machine and say, here's what the issue is, here's what the challenges are, here's how you might or might not be able to work with this and things like that. It's been a good time to work on the business, but we're looking forward to a vaccinated population when we can get back out in the field and connect with people.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people are itching to just be around each other. So it's really going to be great timing for both of you because there's going to be a lot of events happening. So you can capitalize on that. People just wanting to be near each other, haven't seen each other in a long time. And guess what? People have time now to kind of think about their business and what it can look like. So it actually would be like kind of a good timing, respectively, considering what's happening. So I get it. So not only when you talk about your career endeavors, what I find is that it's not all about self. It's not all about just how can I keep building my business. It seems like everything that all of you guys have done is really for someone else. Think about like you're doing it for extension to other people. And I think that to me is what really stands out because when you're taken to any endeavor, you can only make work when you're bringing in others and helping others to do the same. And so I like that that's kind of your focal point. So I know, Kristy, you have moving pieces when it comes to your career, your business career endeavors. So with some of the new ones you have, what would I say? Why? I guess my question, you said one thing about the underdog, so I'm assuming underdog is obviously women in regards to most of your events center around women. But you also have a minority component of a part of as far as the vein and helping us entrepreneurs. Why? Like what have you seen as far as some of the services you have been able to provide that has really opened up the creativity? Because you're really big on critical thinking and generating, like how to get entrepreneurs to learn how to appropriately set themselves up for success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my background is in education, right? And so those are giftings that I have been able to bring to the entrepreneurship space, the training piece, the facilitation piece, the creation piece. And, when I kind of ask myself, what am I here for? I look at myself as a catalyst and a resource. to teach entrepreneurs and leaders how to be more creative, how to be more resilient, and how to be more productive. And, I sort of coined it as CPR, right? To keep the heart of your business running. And so, my mission, my passion with our business really is to just be the face of the real entrepreneurship journey. I mean, we talk about, wanting to become an entrepreneur because you want total freedom. Well, what I have found is, look, Maxine's shaking her head.
I wonder
right?
why she's shaking her head. Hold that shake. I want to know what that means.
Okay. Okay, because honestly, you have the least amount of freedom because you're committed to building your business. There's no clock in, clock out. When the clients call, you have to answer. And there are times as you grow your business, maybe that you get a better handle on that. But the reality is, as I'm coaching startups, they talk about, should I build my business brand first or should I build my personal brand first? And I'm like, there is no difference. When you are starting your business, they are one and the same. People do business with you because of you. And so you have to keep that in mind. There is no difference. Business is personal. And so I have created resources to help people to better understand what the entrepreneurship journey looks like and what to expect on the journey. My latest resource is a book that I've written called Dream, Sync, Launch. And it gives you a visual of what this pathway is going to look like and what those expectations are, and sharpening the skills around creativity and resilience and productivity, because you really have to have all of those in place. And so if you can't do it for yourself, you need to have strategic partnerships and resources where you can learn how to develop those things. And so, that really has been my purpose, my passion, to just authentically represent entrepreneurship as a woman, what spaces are missing to authentically represent entrepreneurship as a woman of color. What it feels like when you show up in these tech-heavy spaces that are male, that are pale, that are, don't look like you, don't relate to your business because it's a service, it's not a high growth, you know what I mean? The pace is so quick. What does that feel like? And to remind people that there is value in your business and in your service. So a lot of the foundation of where we start really is mindset, because you can learn all of the skills and tactics. But if your mindset, if you don't have that growth mindset and the resilience within you to persevere through those things, you will meet all of the statistics that they talk about with businesses failing within the first 5 years. And, these statistics have not changed since the 90s, right? So this is serious. I mean, entrepreneurs are run by people. That's what we miss. People run businesses. So you have to understand the humanity in running your business and how to gird yourself with those resources that you need and that community that you need to encourage you and to educate you and empower you. And so that's what my husband and I have signed up to be for the entrepreneurship community. We always say we're living the business that we run. As we learn, we are sharing. And it's not that we've arrived. We've made mistakes, and I'm sure we'll talk about, some of those. But we found our sweet spot. And, for me, it's creating resources. For him, it's providing media, digital services where we can, share through podcasts, through books, through videos. We have a YouTube channel. So, that really has been where we have evolved in our entrepreneurship journey. And it's the sweet spot for us.
Yeah. And Maxine, I want to hear, if I was going to say real quick, Kristy, on what you're saying, like, that's it. Like, it's not going to be being creative and being bold and recognize it's not going to always, you're not going to get a bunch of no's before you get a bunch of yeses, but it's going to be about, like, another part of passion is like knowing that you're meant to do it. And that's, to me, what creates that resiliency, because it's going to be obstacles, but if you want it that bad, you will keep doing the work, readjusting your approach to make it happen, and that's when it meets the passion. Now, I think you were shaking your head, Max. I feel like I had to capture that moment and what was going on in your head when you were shaking it.
Well, I think that I agree with Kristy. When you decide to do something and you want to be successful, you have to put your whole heart into it. It used to be ready, aim, fire, but now what Kristy says is dream, sync, launch. That's the 21st century version of that. And I think if you have the dream, I always tell kids, have the dream supreme. Dream it as if money wasn't an object, and then figure out how to do the Bentley on the Ford budget, because you're going to have to start on a small budget. And then when you do that and you put all your good ideas out there, regardless of money, you don't put any boxes around what you could do, and it's successful, then the customer takes over. And the customer is telling you how they want you to be successful. They need you, they want you, and that's their cash register ringing. In our case at Build-A-Bear, and in Kristy's case, it's more clients. It's the same. And in Marc's case, it's more businesses coming to him and saying, I want to open a factory, or I need a factory to do this. Can you help me find one? And that's our biggest opportunity in St. Louis. What we have, is underrepresented talent. We have so much of it, particularly in our young people that live here in north of Del Mar. I say this all the time because I've met so many in my education work, so many incredibly talented kids, and they go off to college, go off to training, and they don't necessarily come back to St. Louis because they don't remember that St. Louis cared about them the way that other cities might have cared about them. And I'm determined to change that. And that's really where I get the fun of it, is in the young people, because that's who made Build-A-Bear successful, our customers. And so my goal is to give back to those young people that helped us be successful. They didn't do it for that. They wanted that teddy bear. But in the process, they were making a lot of people successful. All the people we employed, myself and my husband, and we've been able to give it back to the community. And that's the part I think is the magic of doing good and being successful. And that's a 24/7 job. If you start to say, well, I'm going to control my life, you will not be successful, because you can't really, if it's successful, it's going to take on a life of its own.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, this is a great opportunity, because I'm going to ask you, after stepping down in 2013 from the CEO position, you have worked with women, minorities, entrepreneurs. You've helped in the rebuilding of St. Louis education system. You've been playing a critical role in your project called Del Mar Divine. Now, that's kind of been the heart of your venture that you're doing with now. My question is, and this is the topic of this particular panel, is stepping up when it's most difficult. And working with this type of population, I'm assuming there are a lot of obstacles, but you got to kind of already said it. But, it's always that, like, why, kind of like, why did you choose St. Louis? Why did you choose that population north of the Del Mar Divide, Maxine? I know you said there's an untapped talent, and they're not, to me, it feels like they're not getting the ability to have that exposure or have those opportunities, because they don't see anyone that's doing it. No one's asking those questions like, hey, have you ever thought about it? Like, what is it that makes you decide this is the population I want to invest my time into?
Yeah, I think when you're exposed, like I've been to children in schools, and they ask you questions and they're so nosy and creative and curious, you see the talent, you see the sparkle in the eyes, and you wonder, what can I do to get that spark going, to start the fire, not just the spark? And that's what St. Louis needs. We could be that kind of city. I think what Marc was describing earlier is so true. I say this to everyone. We're right in the middle of the country. Anybody who wants to make a product should make it here. And I work with a lot of women and mostly minority women, who are starting businesses because they know what's missing in the marketplace for what they want to buy that's not there. And so they're trying to make it, and I'm trying to help them make it by whatever experience I can bring to the table, my connections. And all of them are booming right now, by the way, because young African Americans want to buy from each other. So that's a whole market. But also, there's products they really want to buy now because they can see that it's for them. And so I want to enable that, because I think it's the economy of the future of St. Louis. And like other cities that have very diverse populations, like Atlanta, for instance, they've been booming for a long time. And Nashville is, almost eating our lunch on this effort. We could be a star because we have the talent, we have the universities, we have the central location, we have everything that we need. We just have to welcome that talent in and help them make the connections, as Kristy was talking about, the banking connections, the product development connections, the factory connections, the packaging connections, the branding connections, whatever. They know what, once you give it to them, they'll take it and run with it, but you got to open that door for them so they can see where that connection really is and cross over. And they say, wow, I can do that. And every step is a step towards a future success. And I want that for St. Louis. And I want to be here to see it, actually. So that's really how, those kids really, really, really inspire me every day. And all the neighbors that live in the Del Mar Divine that I've met over the last 5 years that have welcomed me into their homes and their hearts, I can't even tell people how special that is. People look at me like I'm nuts, but it really is the magic sauce. It's what makes it worth it, is the people and the children and the families and the opportunities that St. Louis has.
I just wanted to build on some of the stuff that Maxine said, because I think it hits the nail so hard right on the head. If you think about it, so one of the things that she talked about was education. And I think that one of the things where we're missing opportunity is that we have too narrow a view of what education is. So it's traditionally always a big school, and that's what it's associated with and everything else. It doesn't mean that somebody that is comparably intelligent, but maybe or maybe not, did not have those opportunities or chose to pursue different opportunities, doesn't learn and have skills that they've acquired through their education that they can bring to the table. And I'm not talking about something sort of, touchy-feely like life experience education. But if you get out of high school and you go into the military for 20 years, you're going to come out knowing something. You have a really strong sense of how product moves across or through a logistics environment. Why can't we look at that and say, hey, I really don't care whether or not you went to MIT. That's moot and irrelevant. But if you can get armaments across an airfield with a 0 error rate, you probably could own a factory and deliver a shipment to Caterpillar on time. So what we need to do, and what St. Louis makes as, we call that in our strategic planning that is nowhere public yet, we call that an alternative education. If you have somebody who, for whatever reason, took a job working at Schnucks and worked their way up into a management role or got into a headquarters role and understands warehousing and understands the buying office, that person's far better qualified, in my outspoken opinion, to run a consumer entrepreneurship business than somebody who studied it in theory in business school. So leverage those educations and find those people, and then find people that, it's also, I don't think there's any big secret. It's the industry that looks the most like the 1950s, which is putting it super politely to say it kind of, what is it? I resemble that remark. It kind of looks like me. So if you want to break that mold, find people that can break that mold, and find people that, once again, to Maxine's point, who are going to go out into neighborhoods and take over factories that we otherwise as a region are at risk of losing. Now you got somebody in the neighborhood. I mean, if I'm in the neighborhood and I look like a guy that's walking in the front door, the woman that's walking in the front door every day, I'm going to be a lot more comfortable going in the front door saying, hey, my friends and I have this crazy idea and we invented this thing, and, is there a there? We don't even know. And, having that conversation to see if maybe there's a product opportunity there. That changes not just families, but it changes neighborhoods, it changes blocks, it changes schools, it changes outlooks, it changes a lot of stuff. And it's also a very compelling argument, I think, in the political sphere when you're advocating and you stand up and you say, look, let's take this argument into who is standing in the way of national commerce. I mean, that's a totally different argument. The only time before I started down the path of understanding that I'm on now, which, candidly, to be perfectly honest, I don't understand that much. Kristy maybe knows some of the people that I know and knows me better than a lot of people by extension, and can say, yeah, he truly doesn't know that much, but he knows who to ask. That's all I want, right? So I have people that I can pull aside and say, what do I do here? And they could say, hey, I'm not like self-appointed to speak for all people of color, but here's my perspective, and maybe go ask a few other people, and these are the people that I'd ask. So when you start to get that dialogue and you start to get people integrated in a really discreet behind the scenes way, so that you're getting introductions not to the bank, but to the right person at the bank, because you've known them for a long time and it's a small local bank and all these other things that really, really count, it makes a difference at the neighborhood level. It makes a difference at the individual level. And we're missing such a huge opportunity there, not just in terms of the talent that we bring in, but also in terms of who we focus on as purchasers. I mean, selfishly, I look at these massive companies. I came out of business school myself. I was at a really large company that in the consumer goods industry. And I'm sitting there thinking, we're spending all of this money trying to connect with foreign markets, and we're not spending any money trying to connect with markets that don't look like us in the U.S. It was really I'm like, dude, I can walk to that market, like literally from my office. So why don't we understand that? And we're sending all this, we're focused on other things, which is awesome. That's great, but that's not necessarily where the next step needed to be taken. So I think we've got an opportunity to address a lot of that. There's nowhere to go but up. You have a lot of small production facilities that are in a position where you've got transition opportunities and ownership. Let's find the next generation of owners, people that come in with a non-traditional education, and then let's work behind the scenes so that absolutely nobody sees the work, because otherwise you're working for yourself and your own ego, and we'll make some introductions. And then, to Maxine's point, things will happen because the people are in the right position with the right support, and by default, things are going to happen. I guess I'm on a soapbox, and then after this, I promise I'll shut up for a little while. When you think about the story of Madam,
just so you know.
when you think about the story of Madam C.J. Walker, right? You think about the story of Madam C.J. Walker in St. Louis, Missouri, and then you ask yourself, why did I need to learn that by myself off of the internet? Why was that not only in my undergraduate, not in my high school, and not in business school? That's insane, because it's not just that she was. And then when you hear that, you hear, oh, well, she was the first woman of color to make $1 million. Who cares about that? She was an entrepreneur who made $1 million when you literally had to physically walk and knock on doors to sell anything. Nobody cares about any of the other details. She connected with customers in a way that's relevant to everyone. And that's a St. Louis story. And we're just clueless about what we have to offer and what we should be lifting people up with in many respects. Certainly in my industry, that's all I'm really qualified to have, a little bit more of an outspoken opinion.
Marc, you are dead on.
I'm off the box.
That really, you are dead on. That's really why representation matters. That is why I harp so on critical thinking, asking questions, doing your own research as an entrepreneur, especially a startup, because you have to understand, you talk about Madam C.J. Walker. And what an example of perseverance, right? Through times where it was the most difficult, but even the representation in that, there was a representation of the life of her story on Netflix. And even the way, there was some discourse about how she was represented within that film, that, she really was not about bringing women together, but that she was more in competition with the women that she trained. And, that was not necessarily the truth. But you have to know your history. You have to ask those questions. And so it's important for us as entrepreneurs, just as you said, Marc, I don't know everything, but I know the right person, to be authentic in your entrepreneurship journey and share the truth about your journey. We don't know it all, but it is about building the right relationships and developing that trust. The amazing work that Maxine is doing with the Del Mar Divine. As great as that project is, if she's not doing the work in building relationships with that community, it's not going to be received. It's going to look like, and we're all friends here, another white woman coming in to save the community. And that's not her heart. That's not her purpose. So she's doing the work to build true relationships and authenticity and really serve as a resource. And I don't even know if you remember this, Maxine, but I was in the room where you were sharing the plans. I was on the board with Girls in the Know. And so I know the work that you put into with bringing voices to the table. This is not just your baby that you said, I'm going to put out into the world. You've been doing the work to make sure that voices are represented, diverse voices are represented at the table on this project. So again, I just cannot speak to the relationship piece and the trust piece and putting yourself out there. That's one thing that, entrepreneurs have a challenge with, just putting yourself out there, showing up in spaces that you might not see anybody else that looks like you. But how are you going to begin to build new connections if you don't show up? So that's what I coach my clients. Just show up and the magic is going to happen. But you can't let fear overtake you because of your own insecurity about what you bring to the table. If you don't value the work and the solutions that you offer, then nobody else is. And it doesn't matter if you're black, white, male, female, whatever. It's the confidence that you bring to the table. And that's what people are inspired by, how you show up and how you authentically connect with them.
Absolutely. One thing I want to add is that a person taught me this not too long ago. I was on a conference call and I heard them say this, that he calls himself the 5-minute problem solver. And what he does, he's a connector. Somebody calls him and says, do you know somebody who, a bank that would lend me this startup? I only need $25,000. And he has in his head, he said, yeah, I think I know. And if they don't know, they'll connect you to somebody who will. And there you've made a connection. It only took 5 minutes. And it might take a little extra time to call the person or to send them an email, but it's really a short amount of time. And that's really, when people say to me, how do you do all this? It's because I don't really do it. I just make the connection. And people are hungry for these connections and they'll do the follow-up. And if they don't, then they don't deserve to have that connection and it'll just sort of fall through the wayside. But 90% of people follow through, and that's why we're starting to prosper. And these kids are young people. I call them all kids, not because they're kids, but because they're just younger people. they're starting to really grab onto this and really become leaders in the business community as well as in the nonprofit business, social entrepreneurship, and this for-profit entrepreneurship.
What you find at sea with a lot of entrepreneurs, this is a common theme, like it's about paying it forward, it's about how can I help you? And then when it comes, and when you do that, you just work, like say in the realms of helping others, and everything that's meant to come to you, it'll come. But let that not be like, let me find a way I can make connections so I can make a profit. No, let me find a way I can help the person I'm connecting with to give them to build their business or to bring them to the right person. So I really think that's one important thing to pull out, because that's what I'm seeing as a common theme here. When you are building your business, just focus on building community, find a way that you can help others build their business, advocate for others, and things will naturally come back in the way that they're supposed to when it comes to your own personal endeavors. So let's switch gears for a moment, and we're going to talk a little bit about the footwork behind the scenes. It's kind of like the image that we see, like a duck floating across the pond. We have no idea all the pedaling he or she is doing underneath that water. But that's the reality when it comes to putting, like Maxine said, putting in the work. It takes work, it takes time, it takes sweat, it takes walking on uncharted territory. And it's a bold thing. But there will be struggles that we all face in different areas of our career endeavors or our entrepreneurship endeavors. And Marc, I want to ask you, I know that you are the founder, you're overseeing the St. Louis Make is your baby. That and personally, what were some things you had to deal with yourself to help you to kind of overcome and keep pushing through and following your passion in some of these endeavors?
Yeah, so, I think that whenever you do something like that, there's always a waterfall that you got to swim up, and I think at some point in time, even though your public face doesn't show it, you always have to maintain a strong positive public face. You do have doubts, and that's how we make course corrections. That's how we make pivots, and that's how we make adjustments. But those doubts, you're not always able to focus on and to talk about and to discuss. So whenever I've done something of that nature myself, once again, you got to be surrounded by the right people. You got to make sure that your passion is also driven by some math. I mean, just because I want to do it, if the math doesn't hold, it doesn't really matter what I want to do. Math's bad, right? It's still got to be able to connect with people and actually deliver some value, and that's always captured in numbers. So, it's an ongoing and constant process of wearing yourself down and then finding a way that you can pivot slightly and picking it up and moving forward. There's erosion there that you face, but you get up and, you make these changes because you connect with people. You get some of these stories, it would be great, but it would also be, I think, a little bit Disney film to say that, they were inspirational, like watching a Hallmark movie at Christmas time, because, they're not. I mean, you leave them and you're still exhausted. And there's still doubt and there's still all the rest of this stuff. You've just seen a little bit more of where you think the math is and what you think that this thing rests on. We saw an opportunity in this marketplace where you have a lot of small producers and you don't have a lot of resources. We grew into the reality that a lot of those small producers looked like me, and that there was a whole untapped segment of the marketplace, both as customers and as prospective next generation owners. That was just opportunistic, but, that was one of those little course correction, little pivots, little adjustments that, as we came to understand it more, it made more sense to pursue that, or it made equal sense to pursue that along with what we were already delivering and who we were already connecting with. So hopefully that gets you somewhat of an answer.
Yeah. We all start off with our business plan, and, how many of us has really just stayed on the narrow with their business plan? Because, actions begets other actions. You start with one plan, then something comes in and makes you pivot to go to another, and so like I say, if it's nothing, whatever your initial idea was, if that didn't line up, doesn't mean you throw it away. There just be an opportunity to pivot, to like say recourse to where you just decide, oh, this is the area where I can bring that same business to this particular population or industry. So I think to me, it's really important to know, like, you may have your set plan, but be open to flexibility if it doesn't always just line up that way. So speaking of many different business ideas and products, Kristy, you have been known for that with your Bizpiration. I know that is one of your new babies, and you mentioned your book, and you have workshops, you have cards. I mean, you have a lot of different, you even have paraphernalia. You got it all. We got it all happening. And like, I'm like, how is she still doing it? But she's doing, okay, is she sleeping? So, you know, that's just the reality. That's the grit behind it, you know? But I would say with some of those different areas that you have been exploring, what have been some common threads of obstacles that you have to overcome to either decide when to like put it on the shelf for later or when to like bring it and push it? Like, what were some of the obstacles that you struggled with or you faced that you have to make certain choices, make hard calls?
Yeah, well, I mean, that was the challenge in knowing when the idea is baked and when it's time to pivot, when it's time to, you know, make that shift and refocus, and to understand that it is not a measure, you know, against your character because you decide to pivot in your business. And sometimes that is the most challenging because even for us, you know, we had the DK Annex space. And so we had a physical brick and mortar space that we created where entrepreneurs could come and gather. We launched just about most of the minority-owned businesses in St. Louis in some way. I mean, we talk about Keisha Mabry, you know, we're talking about like all of these greats that had their launch events at our space. And in some way, we contributed to the development of their business. And, you know, in us deciding that, you know, when we started that business, our heart and soul was around training and facilitating business development with entrepreneurs. And the space was just a physical gathering space where they felt welcome, they felt warm, there was representation there. But it morphed into where the money was going. And that was social events, right? Like weddings and parties and, you know, holiday events. And that is not what we signed up for. But we followed the money for a while. And after that, we lost our passion around it. We were physically exhausted. And then after that, we stopped making the money because we didn't care so much anymore. And so that's when we realized we have the power to change this. Let's look at what are the services that we do better than anybody else, that we do differently, and that people need. And so we had a wide variety of individuals in our network that we could connect. I mean, from the faith-based spaces to nonprofit to education to business. And, you know, my husband had the media and the photography, you know, gifts. And so thanks be to God, you know, before COVID hit, we decided that it was time for us to make a pivot. And it was to focus on digital branding and marketing and creative development for companies. And we could do that virtually. So we got rid of the overhead. We got rid of the physical space that was literally weighing us down. And that was before COVID. So imagine the weight that would have been on us post-COVID. I mean, we wouldn't have been able to manage that. But our business has grown exponentially because of the virtual focus. And so we are happier. We're more creative. I'm able to, that's why I can produce all of these resources and products because I'm in a space where, you know, I have joy. I can create, I can, you know, be more available to my clients. And, you know, we don't have all of this high overhead, so our price structure can be more accessible. So it was a difficult decision because we felt like we were letting people down. But what I know is that, as Brene Brown always says, clear is kind. And so if we authentically communicate the reason behind this shift, it will encourage. I believe it will set some free that are holding on to businesses that have been dead and gone that they really wanted to walk away from. And Maxine, I love your example because, you know, I've been in a lot of entrepreneurship development programs, and I was in the SBA leadership development program, and they talked about having an exit plan as an entrepreneur. And that's not something that we always think about. We think about, you know, having this business and having to take it to the grave with us. But if you are strategic and you have foresight in your business, you can be intentional about an exit plan, and you may be able to pivot to other endeavors in your business path. So I heard you mention that Maxine is now focusing on them. I mean, who would think that to walk away from Build-A-Bear, like, oh my goodness, but it is written, right? It is a part of purpose. It is a part of your plan. And I have learned that when you stay in the way, you are blocking up progress. So how many opportunities are now open for Build-A-Bear with your kids that are going to come up behind, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be able to have new experiences under your tutelage and your, just the doors that you've opened for so many women and youth, and just the example that you've been. I remember taking my kids to the Galleria, to go to Build-A-Bear, and just such a full circle moment to be on this panel with you today. But I'm telling you, that pivot is a lifesaver. And don't be afraid, as they say, don't be afraid to phone in a friend. Don't be afraid to use it if you need to. Business is about strategy, and it's about joy. And so if you don't have both, you might want to rethink where you are in your business.
Great. Well said, Kristy. Well said. Like knowing when to pivot, knowing when to shut down the doors, and even having what's your plan? What's your default plan? What's your plan 10 years, 20 years down the road? When is it the right time to give it over to someone else or to partner with someone else and you go on to another endeavor? And that actually ties into one of the questions I have for Maxine. Like, we hear these great grandiose successes, and we know and we respect the work that you've been doing behind it, and you're continuing to do work. Now that you're in more of a newer endeavor comparable to Build-A-Bear, there's opportunity for growth, and there can be maybe difficult moments that you may encounter throughout this. Has there ever been any times where you may have second guessed your decision from stepping down and going to this space, or has it been feel like it's a natural transition?
I'm sure there's times. I'm a pretty optimistic person, and I really look at things, yes, sometimes I say it to myself, what did I get into? But that's it for 5 minutes, because if you have purpose, you know where you're going. You don't know exactly where you're going to land, but you know where you're going, and you're going forward. And I would say that back where Kristy was talking about Build-A-Bear, is that I knew that I wanted Build-A-Bear to last forever, and I wasn't going to last forever. So the sooner I figured out where it should go without me was for the good of the company and for the future. Not so I would have less, but so I would have more. I would have something to do. I had a lot that I still wanted to do. And I also knew that there was other people. No one else could have started it, but somebody else could take it to a new direction. And that's really how I looked at it. And I think that's really about, really the total feeling of prosperity is when you know you can walk away and you have enough. And somebody else can now participate, and you can still have more doing something else. But I would say that one of the things that's been challenging about the difference between a nonprofit enterprise and a for-profit enterprise is for a for-profit enterprise, when you're generating cash, and that's what I agree with Marc about three-dimensional products, consumer products, making stuff, because it employs more people. And it also has a really rich cash return because people buy it. And the money keeps coming in if you're successful. And so I really believe in that. And I think but the difference in nonprofit is it takes a longer time. But I have actually felt that the 5 years this has taken, and I didn't plan for it to take 5 years for the Del Mar Divine to open. I wanted it to open faster, but that wasn't what God wanted. God said, nope, you've got to spend time getting to know the neighborhood, getting to know the complexity of a project like this. I've never built anything like this. It's half a mall size, and it's really, really big in that respect. So in the process of that 5 years that I had to slow down and learn something new that I didn't know anything about, like, building a building like this, restoring a building in a neighborhood where there was going to be lots of people that wanted to have input. I learned so much. And most of all, I made great friends. I'm invited to people's weddings. I'm invited to their baby, not right now during COVID, but baby showers. People see me coming into the neighborhood and call me on my car phone and say, my cell phone, will you come over for a cup of coffee? And people are constantly, now they're watching the building. They're seeing things that are happening. They're calling me when they see something that looks out of line. I had a call the other day about a construction worker that they didn't like what he was doing and they thought I should know about it. They're looking out for me, and they're looking out for our project. This isn't Maxine's project. I'm just leading it. It's really a project for the community and for all of St. Louis. And I think that that's what keeps me going, even though many times I could have given up, and many times we didn't know if we'd make the money that we needed to build this gigantic thing. And also, we thought, when people said we have to why don't we tear it down and start over? I said, no, this has got a history. This is what St. Louis did to itself. It erased its history, but it has a wonderful history. And it's not like we want to go backwards, but we want to learn from our mistakes and go forwards. And this hospital was first built in 1904. Why would we want to lose that history? So for me, that's been a gift that the neighborhood has given to me. They've taught me so much. People tell me they were born there or their mother was a nurse there. I have so much wonderful joy from this. Joy is a really important word. And I had wonderful joy from Build-A-Bear, and I still have that, but I have this new joy. And I think that's really what the future keeps bringing you, is new joy.
Love it. Oh my.
Maxine, I had a chance to do a hard hat tour of in the Del Mar Divine, and I was born there when it was St. Luke's Hospital. So it was like full circle, me walking around like, oh my God, I was born here, right?
Wow.
You know, so
I'll have to get that in writing. I'll have to get your story I know you don't remember that, but maybe you can add some color, because we want to collect all the stories of the people that have a memory of St. Luke's Hospital and of regional hospital as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well said, guys. I love it. That's a lot of, you unpacked a lot there, Maxine. Again, when we are able to have the space for everyone, again, they see the end product, but they have no idea of the time, the resources, the ideas, the long nights. I mean, your heart, for something your heart is continually to pump, and it hasn't slowed down. You just have transitioned over to another endeavor. That's all you've done. And it will be in fruition when it comes to the Del Mar Divine Project. I'm excited to see what it looks like at the end. Now that I see all the energy just from you talking that's been put behind it. It's pure heart. It
already looks like a different building already, with just the construction workers working there and cleaning off the grass around the place and the old trees. It looks like a new building, and it's not even, barely started.
Huh. Well, so we're going to keep talking about your passion. We'll keep pushing forward, because we're all, as you see, everyone on here, we're still pushing forward. Now, I want to create opportunity, for viewers that are out there listening to this, that, we want to not just light a fire for you, but we want you to really take some of the information that we're talking about and find where you fit in it and move forward with it. So I want to get a little bit of words of inspiration. I want to get a few words of what you would say to those people that are out there that are considering or are find themselves in an uncomfortable situation, but still know that they want to do something or don't have that confidence. Marc, I'll ask you first. How would you encourage a person who's not familiar in building and within the infrastructure of their business to ensure scalability? It's a possibility when it comes to innovation, when it comes to technology, when it comes to connecting to the right people that's going to put them in that position.
I think if you admit what you don't know straight up, then you've taken away people's ability to think poorly of you subconsciously, which they might otherwise not even realize that they're doing. If I come up to you and two keywords are always saying, I'm a student, student's a keyword, I'm learning. And the other word is, and I need your help. Those are two words that, it's my understanding, increase the likelihood of engagement and increase the likelihood of actually getting help. So if I also include with that, hey, my name's Marc, and I'm kind of a student of this subject, and I need your help. I don't understand a single thing about logistics, but I've got this great cookie recipe, and we've had some traction with it at the farmer's market, and we've done these other things. Or I have this hair care product, and it was really resonated with some friends. So we've taken it a little bit further, and now we're in a couple of independent salons. But I don't understand a single thing about co-packing. I don't understand a single thing about distribution and logistics. And I was hoping that you could maybe suggest to me 3 people that I could speak to that could help me in my journey as I learn more. I mean, now, seriously, if they don't answer your question and to the affirmative and help you out, they should seriously leave feeling really badly about themselves if you phrase it the right way.
Yeah. Wow. Just that.
So admit what you don't know to get what you need.
Okay. Thank you. Maxine, especially working within the population that you're centering your energy around, many of them are faced with setbacks that they can't control, or, as we talked about, have not even been exposed to these potential opportunities out there. What would be the first steps you would recommend for them to take?
Mm-hmm. One of the first things I say to people is, if you want to open the best restaurant in St. Louis, go work in one that you think is the best restaurant in St. Louis and get a job there and learn what they're doing, because you'll meet their vendors, you'll meet how they do their staffing. You'll learn a lot in the process, and you can say, I like that and I'm going to do that in my business, or I don't like it and I'm going to not do that in my business, because mistakes help you learn as much. The other thing is, you mentioned it earlier, I would say write a business plan. The first person you have to convince that it's worth doing is yourself. And if you write the plan and you dream the dream supreme and you say, okay, I've got this on paper, I think I'm going to go for it, because it is a lot. It's a 24/7 job. And I think everybody's capable of it. So with young people especially, I ask them to tell me their idea. What are you passionate about? Tell me why you want to do this. And if I can help them structure it into a plan, I do. But mostly I want them to first do that. That's the first step. And a lot of times people will say, I decided I want to do something different. That's good. Okay, go with it. That's the purpose. And so I think that really is a big opportunity, is to get the experience and then to write the plan that you want, that your dream, as Kristy said, the dream. That's the first step. What is that dream? And as articulate it as best you can, because if you convince yourself, then the next person is the bank, your partners, the employees that you want to come with you. If you need a location, you have to convince that factory to make your product, or you need a store to sell it in. You're going to have to convince other people. And so it's learning to be a salesperson as well. So I think all of those are really good skills to have before. Those will help you get to where you need to go. And then you'll say, I'm there. I'm going for it. I'm going to do this.
Yeah. And then you help others. Thank you, Maxine. Yes. Kristy, we're going to end this last question with you. Now, as an entrepreneur, we all, as I said, we talked about Ask Maxine, we all second guess ourselves. Like, am I doing this? Is this really what I'm supposed to be doing? Or I should probably start looking for some jobs just in case this doesn't fall through. So we go through that, but being skilled in empowerment and business development, what would you tell that next entrepreneur that is having those second guess thoughts and wonder if this is where they're supposed to be?
Well, I will say that clarity is the biggest gift, right? Because clarity directs you to focus. So when you have clear vision, that is where purpose begins. And so I said, I have background in education, and one of my favorite children's books is called The Three Questions. And so I have 3 questions that I like to ask startup entrepreneurs that are thinking about, what pivot they should make, should they start a business, what type of business they should start. And so the first question is, what can I do that other people cannot do or don't want to do? So what is that thing that you can do that other people can't or they don't want to? And then the next question is why is this needed now? What is the urgency? Because that speaks to the value of that product. And that's that market research piece that many of entrepreneurs overlook. They start their businesses because they're born out of passion, because they love it. But guess what? You're not going to always be your customer. I'm not my own customer. So you have to understand, I'm just being honest, you have to understand that there has to be a need in the market for the product that you want. And then the last question is sort of your action steps. What can I do in 5 minutes, in 5 days, in 5 weeks to make this happen? And so when you think about 5 with 5 minutes, you might do a quick Google search to find out, what are the resources that are out there that have a similar idea? Or can you send a quick email to Maxine or Marc to say, I have questions, I'm having these thoughts about starting this business. Who should I talk to? But then you might go on to thinking about what you can do in 5 days. Well, in 5 days, you can try to shadow an expert. Maybe you can show up at St. Louis Makes and say, hey, can I just kind of look over your shoulder for a day or two just to see if this is something that I really want? You might be into health and wellness, like Rashonda. So you might create a health and wellness meal prep plan or a workout plan for 5 days that you want to try. And then what will you do for 5 weeks? And that's where you can test out your idea in the market. You can follow up with your health plan, re-evaluate it. Was it successful? Is this something that I want to continue? Maybe you might take a course to learn how to sharpen your skills. But we don't do the pre-work in starting the business. And we all say do a business plan. And when you are a new entrepreneur, that sounds like a foreign language to me, because I don't know anything about market trends. I don't know anything about, my money investments. I just know that I have passion and that I want to start a business. So I try to simplify it as often as, in this way with these 3 questions, because a child can respond to these questions, right? And so if you're not willing to put in the work to think about these 3 questions, you might want to rethink entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Wow. I think that's short and sweet, but it gave enough depthness to where people like, this is, if you want to start this is ways that you can test it out. We have definitely have brought on some enriching conversations, different concepts of like different approaches and how we can help those entrepreneurs out there that does have that burning sensation, but don't really have direction or opportunity. But how can they appropriately help them in a position to where they are going to be successful? So I really appreciate you guys just taking a moment and just giving your story, giving your struggles, and giving and sharing your successes with us today. As we're getting ready to leave, I want to give everyone maybe just 30 seconds. Like, is there some way that there's some new endeavor that you guys are having coming up? Is there some sort of project that you're working on you want to tell the public? Or is there some way that people can communicate, can reach out to if they need to consult with you or ask you for any type of help? Maxine, I give you the mic first.
Yeah, no, I would say that what I'm focused on right now, so that we can open on time next year, is the Del Mar Divine. And if anybody wants to reach me, it's Maxine at delmardivine.com. But just that to me is really my main goal, and I'm staying focused on that because it's really important for St. Louis. And I'm going to actually talk to Marc about some business opportunities because we have some entrepreneurs that have approached me, and I think we can get going on some products through him. So all this today really benefited me greatly. Thank you.
That's how it works. All right, Kristy, how about you? What do you have on tap?
Well, I have a new book coming out, Dream Sync Launch. I'm really, really excited about. I say that, this book is sort of my tell-all about my business and my life. And so it's just been, cathartic for me to share the lessons that we've learned and also honor the syncs in my life that have brought me to this place so that I can launch and help others to launch successfully. So it is available for pre-order now on our website, dreamsynclaunch.com. Kristy Jackson, Kristy. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook. And I just want to say shout out to my sis, Rashonda, for this awesome platform. I'm so excited for you and just really happy to be a guest here today.
Oh, thank you, Kristy. Thank you. Marc, we'll let you take it home.
So I appreciate the opportunity, really a great deal. And I wanted to start off by saying thank you. And hopefully I didn't stay on my soapbox too long. I did a couple of quotes that are passions for me.
The passion is coming out.
So if you can remember that my first name is spelled Marc, you'll always be able to find me because when you Google Marc Bowers, I'm the only one in St. Louis. I also am one of the few people you meet who owns his own web domain. So it's marcbowers.com. You just need to remember to spell Marc correctly. As far as projects that we're working on that the public doesn't know about yet, St. Louis Makes has one of our three, what I call pillars of service delivery, is an annual research project that we do in conjunction with the St. Louis University, professor at St. Louis University that we work with. And we're not doing a benchmarking study where we do the same boring stuff they do at business school. We're really trying to identify opportunities that other people don't know about or haven't found. And what we've taken on for this next project is essentially to create a roadmap of the consumer packaged goods industry for the St. Louis metro area. So if you know any entrepreneurs in consumer goods, I don't care if it's food, hair care, or anything of the sort. I don't care if it's sold by themselves off of their website or through Walmart or through Amazon or through local independent markets. Those are the people that we're looking to connect with right now, up through a size of about $99 million in revenue, which are no longer entrepreneurs. But the value that we deliver is that there might also not be that good at new product development, and the entrepreneurs have a proven track record there. So that's where the connections make the most sense. So we're looking to connect with anybody that has more than an idea. I would only ask that they be post-revenue. But somebody that, I don't care if you sold a single unit at the farmer's market, as long as we know that you're in the game enough that you've gotten out there and you've actually collected a check. That size all the way up to about $99 million, privately controlled consumer goods.
All right.
Send them my way.
Thank you, Marc. We definitely
Awesome.
will. Yes. And again, guys, thank you again. This whole conversation is talking about the groundwork to just pushing forward and building your business, being relentless, and also find a way to help others. So again, I want to thank you guys for being a part of this podcast show. And those who are out there, let this be some of the nuggets that you take to put together your grit, your work, and your heart and passion behind to move forward in your life and in your business. Thank you for watching. So thanks for being a part of their stories, their struggles, and their successes. Because of the work of the local dairy farmers and efforts from Midwest Dairy, we were able to bring more monthly conversations to you from mindful leaders that can be able to come to the table and tell you about their own path that can inspire you. So be on the lookout for next month's panel, Conversations with Mindful Leaders. See you next month.